10 years after she disappeared, the prodigal daughter finally came home. Livia Ashwood stepped out of the car as though she had never been gone. She was still carefree, still whimsical, still completely unaware of the devastation her absence had caused. In her hand was a small wishing bottle filled with sand. She smiled and handed it to Adrian Thorne, the man who had once nearly died of a broken heart when she disappeared. Adrian was now 32, a ruthless billionaire CEO, a man feared throughout the business world. But the moment he saw Livia, something inside him changed. She smiled. Every grain of sand in here represents a day I missed you. Adrian's posture went rigid. Then Livia turned toward me. Her chin lifted confidently. I'm back. She smiled. The stand-in can leave now. I stared at her. 10 years. That was how long I had been the stand-in. The replacement. The woman who had stepped into Livia's life after she ran away. For 10 years, I had been Mrs. Thorne. For 10 years, I had built Adrian's empire beside him. And now that Livia had returned, she expected me to simply disappear. Adrian placed the wishing bottle on the passenger seat. Then he looked back at me. The message was obvious. I took the hint and quietly slipped into the back seat. He looked uncomfortable. What's wrong? I knew exactly what he meant, so I answered calmly. We agreed when we got married that I would never try to take Livia's place. 10 years ago, Livia had run away from home without a word. My biological parents, the Ashwoods, had panicked. They needed someone to take her place. So they came looking for me, their biological daughter, the daughter they had abandoned in the countryside. They brought me back just in time to save an arranged marriage with the Thorne family. And on my wedding night, Adrian drank himself unconscious, calling Livia's name over and over. For 10 years, while Livia traveled the world, I paid the price for her freedom. While she danced in Hawaii, I was bowing and scraping to Adrian's stepmother. While she took photographs with penguins in Antarctica, I was drinking myself sick trying to secure our company's first major contract. While she chased the northern lights and watched African sunsets, I was losing our first child, then our second, both casualties of the power struggles inside the Thorne family. I had even felt a kidnapper's knife pressed against my throat. Livia had enjoyed 10 years of freedom, and now she had returned expecting to reclaim everything, without lifting a finger. I looked out the window and wondered, did she really think I would simply hand her my life? Adrian suddenly received a call. His phone was connected to the car's Bluetooth. He answered. Livia's voice filled the car. Adrian, Mom and Dad told me you two still don't have children. She giggled. Is it because you were waiting for me? My body went rigid. Children had always been a painful subject. At 25, I had become pregnant with our first child. Adrian's stepmother tricked me into drinking an herbal tea. I miscarried. 3 years later, I became pregnant again. This time I hid the pregnancy carefully. I made it to 6 months. Then I was slowly poisoned. The baby didn't survive. The day I was induced, my screams were so raw they barely sounded human. Adrian held me tightly, tears streaming down his face. He promised me he would never let me suffer like that again. And for a while, he kept that promise. 3 years later, he drove his stepmother and half-brother out of the Thorne family. He seized control of the Thorne Group. By 32, Adrian Thorne was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. And during his first major business interview, he publicly thanked me for supporting him throughout those difficult years. I thought perhaps, after everything we'd survived, our marriage had finally become real. Then Livia came home. A week after that interview, Adrian caught my expression in the rearview mirror. He immediately ended the call. Amy, Livia doesn't know what happened these past 10 years. Don't mind her. She's always been sheltered. I laughed bitterly. Your composure disappears pretty quickly when it comes to Livia. Adrian frowned. Amy, you're even making excuses for her now. Suddenly, he slammed on the brakes. The car screeched to a stop. He turned toward me. Are you still holding that against me? I stared at him and remembered our first year of marriage. His half-brother suffered a severe allergic reaction. His stepmother accused me of putting peanuts into the cookies. 2 housemaids held me down. I was forced to kneel on the floor. Adrian was there. He knew I was innocent. He said nothing. His stepmother and the other women slapped me 20 times. My lips split. My face swelled. I looked at Adrian desperately, but he simply stood there. Later, when we returned to our bedroom, he gave me 2 ice packs. His face was full of guilt. The timing isn't right. I hope you understand. That word stayed with me. Understand. Later that night, I woke because of a pain. I went into the kitchen for more ice and heard Adrian speaking on the phone. Thank God it wasn't Livia. She never would have been able to handle it. I froze. That was the moment I understood. For 10 years, I had thought I was building a marriage, but maybe I had simply been filling a vacancy, a replacement, a stand-in. Adrian's phone rang again. Livia. He answered, but he forgot to disconnect the Bluetooth. Her voice filled the car. Adrian, can you come be with me tonight? The Bluetooth suddenly disconnected. Through the window, I watched Adrian crush his cigarette beneath his shoe. He looked flustered, almost like the 22-year-old man who had once loved Livia. 10 minutes later, he returned to the car. His eyes were tired. Amy, I'll take you home first. Tonight, I might have to. Don't. I cut him off, then forced myself to speak calmly. You don't need to report your plans to me. The cold formality clearly hurt him. He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. Amy Ashwood, you've always kept a wall around me. Are you that desperate to draw a line between us? I looked away. How ironic. He was the one standing on the edge of our marriage. Yet somehow, I was the one being accused of creating distance. That evening, my mother called. Amy, your father and I aren't good with words. We asked Adrian to help convince Livia to move on. Can you just give your sister some time? She's still young. I almost laughed. Livia was 30 years old. But 10 years earlier, when my parents needed me to marry Adrian, they had told me, "You're a grown woman now. You need to learn to help the family." I answered coldly, "Mom, I see you and Dad haven't changed. You're still cleaning up Livia's messes for her." The truth was, I had barely spent a year with my biological parents. When I was 18, they found me. But Livia hated me. She framed me repeatedly. And every time, my parents believed her. Then one day, she threw herself down the stairs and accused me of pushing her. My father slapped me without even asking what happened. My mother called me vicious. Then they sent me back to the countryside. They remembered I was their biological daughter only when Livia ran away from her wedding. Only then did they need me. And now they expected me to step aside again. The next day, Adrian called. "Amy, come have breakfast. I made you sunny-side-up eggs the way you like them." But Livia's voice could be heard in the background. My stomach tightened. I'm not interested. I had imagined 100 different things that might have happened between them the previous night. I didn't want to hear any of them confirmed. Adrian sighed. "Do you have to be so cold?" Then Livia's voice came closer. "Adrian, don't fight with my sister. If she really can't stand having me around, I can leave again. For another 10 years. Adrian immediately softened. "That won't happen." Then he returned to me. "There's a family dinner at the Ashwood Villa tonight. I expect you to be there." Livia called playfully. "You have to come, sister." The call ended. I stared at my phone, then whispered, "Fine." I would go. My parents, my husband, my sister. What could possibly frighten me anymore? 2 hours later, I arrived at the Ashwood Villa. I wore a couture gown. Every inch of me looked like the wife of one of the country's most powerful CEOs. Livia was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, barefoot, wearing pajamas, showing everyone photographs from her travels. When she saw me, she burst out laughing. "Sister, it's just a family dinner. What's with the battle armor? Don't tell me you're trying to compete with me over a meal." I clenched my fists, then smiled. "Oh, please. That no-makeup look must have taken some effort. Unlike you, I have an image to maintain. If a reporter photographs Mrs. Thorne looking sloppy, it reflects badly on the family." Livia's smile vanished. Her eyes filled with tears. You're nothing but a thief who stole my life while I was gone. I looked at her, then laughed. Between the two of us, who is the real thief? When you were happy, you were Miss Ashwood, enjoying the family fortune. When you were unhappy, you were just Livia, the free spirit who needed to live her own life. You got to walk away from everything. So, why was I the one left to clean up your mess and go through with this marriage? Adrian suddenly roared my name. Amy. His eyes were bloodshot. He stormed toward me. His right hand rose. I didn't move. I simply lifted my chin. Let him hit me. Maybe that slap would finally wake me from the 10-year dream of being Mrs. Thorne. But before he could strike, Adrian, don't. Livia wrapped her arms around him from behind. We made our feelings clear last night. That's enough for me. I couldn't bear it if you fought with my sister because of me. I stared at them. Then the words escaped before I could stop them. You're only brave enough to act tough in front of me. In front of her, you're nothing but a well-behaved dog. Slap. The blow landed. My face turned sharply. Behind Adrian, Livia peeked out and smiled. A tiny, triumphant smile. I tasted blood, then looked directly at Adrian. Mr. Thorne.
My voice was calm.
I want a divorce. The room went silent, and for 10 years of my life, I paused. $2 billion seems fair. Adrian's pupils contracted. What did you just say? I wiped the blood from my split lip. You heard me. $1 billion for the 2 children I lost, and $1 billion for the decade I spent building your empire while you were still mourning a runaway woman. My father stepped forward. Stop this nonsense. You are Mrs. Thorne. You don't embarrass this family with childish tantrums. I turned toward him. 10 years ago, you sold me to the Thornes to cover your failing supply lines. I owe you nothing. The Ashwood Group survived this decade because Adrian trusted my management, not yours. Livia smiled from behind Adrian. Sister, don't be like that. If you need money, Adrian can give you an allowance. You don't need to invent fake numbers. Shut up, Livia. Adrian suddenly snapped. She froze. Then he looked at me. You're doing this because of last night. Nothing happened between Livia and me. I sat in a coffee shop until dawn trying to clear my head. I shook my head. It doesn't matter where you slept. I pulled a thick manila envelope from my handbag and dropped it onto the glass table. Thud. The divorce papers are already signed on my end. My legal team will contact yours tomorrow morning. Then I turned toward the door. Behind me, my father shouted, Walk out that door, and you are no longer an Ashwood. I paused, looked back, and smiled sadly. Dad. I was never your daughter to begin with. Then I walked away. I moved into a penthouse I had secretly purchased 3 years earlier. Adrian knew nothing about it. It was my sanctuary and my escape plan. By Monday morning, the financial tabloids were exploding. Thorne Group titan facing multi-billion-dollar divorce settlement. The company's stock plunged 8%. But there was something Adrian and the public didn't know. I wasn't simply his trophy wife. I was the chief operating officer. I controlled Thorne Group's supply chains, its international expansion, its key investors, and 35% of its voting shares through my independent holding company. I ignored Adrian's calls. My attorney, Mr. Vance, handled everything. Then my assistant knocked on my penthouse door. Miss Ashwood, Mr. Thorne is downstairs. He's been standing in the lobby for 3 hours. Security wants to know if they should call the police. I took a sip of black coffee. Tell them to escort him out. If he resists, let them take him to the station. An hour later, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A photograph. Adrian was sitting alone in an expensive bar. His suit was disheveled. A glass of whiskey sat in front of him. Then came a voice message. Livia. He came to me, Amy, just like he always does. You were only a seat warmer. Give up your $2 billion claim. Or I'll make sure the media paints you as an ungrateful gold-digging country bumpkin. I smiled, then forwarded the audio to Mr. Vance. Add this to the extortion and harassment file. Livia thought this was a romantic rivalry. She thought we were fighting over a man. She didn't understand. I wasn't fighting for Adrian. I was fighting for freedom and revenge. 2 weeks passed. Adrian refused to sign the divorce papers. Meanwhile, Livia began rebuilding her social life. Lavish parties, luxury shopping, expensive jewelry. She wanted everyone to remember her as the true heir of the Ashwood family. But she had no idea what I controlled. The Ashwood family's finances depended heavily on credit guarantees bearing my personal signature. So on a rainy Thursday night, I revoked them. The next evening, Livia walked into an elite auction house. She attempted to bid $10 million on an emerald necklace. Her card was declined. She tried another.
Declined.
The auctioneer politely asked her to step aside. Whispers spread through the room. Livia stormed outside and found a group of process servers waiting for her. They handed her a stack of legal documents. Corporate interference, embezzlement, extortion,
Fraud.
her face turned white.
But that wasn't the end.
That same day, my team released medical records from 3 years earlier. The toxicology reports, the evidence surrounding my second pregnancy. The compound used to poison me hadn't been obtained solely by Adrian's stepmother. It had been imported through an overseas account linked directly to Livia Ashwood. She hadn't simply been traveling the world. She had been watching, waiting, terrified that I might give birth to an heir to the Thorne fortune before she returned. The woman everyone thought was carefree had been planning, and now the storm had arrived. I walked into Thorne Tower. The board meeting was already underway. Shareholders were panicking. The stock was collapsing. The poisoning scandal had exploded across every major news outlet. I pushed open the mahogany doors. Every head turned. Adrian sat at the head of the table. He looked nothing like the powerful CEO I had married. Dark circles beneath his eyes. Bloodshot eyes. A wrinkled suit. He looked broken. Livia stood beside him.
Pale.
Terrified. She had run to him for protection. The moment he saw me, he stood. Amy, please. Let me explain. I dropped a stack of legal documents onto the table. Whether you knew about the poisoning or not doesn't change what happened. Your neglect enabled it. Then I looked around the room. As holder of 35% of Thorne Group voting shares through my independent firm, and representing the majority coalition of board members, I paused. I moved for an immediate vote of no confidence against Adrian Thorne as CEO. The room exploded. Adrian went pale. Amy, you can't do this. I built this company. I looked directly into his eyes. Correction. We built it. While you were crying over a wishing bottle full of sand, Livia screamed. She's lying. Adrian, she's trying to ruin you. She's jealous because you love me. Adrian turned toward her, and for the first time, he looked at Livia as though he were seeing her for the first time. Shut up. She froze. Get away from me. His voice cracked. Get out of my sight. Then Adrian fell to his knees, right there in front of the entire board. Tears streamed down his face. He reached for the hem of my coat. Amy, please. I was wrong. I was a fool. I thought I was being kind to her because I felt guilty. But it was always you. These past 10 years. You were the one holding my entire world together. Don't leave me. I'll give you everything. Just don't leave me. I looked down at him. The man who had watched me get slapped 20 times. The man who had abandoned me when Livia called. The man who had allowed his family to treat me as a replacement. I gently pulled my coat away. It's too late, Adrian. You spent 10 years looking back. Now you can spend the rest of your life living in the past. The board voted, unanimously. Adrian Thorne was removed as CEO. His corporate protection disappeared. His personal assets were frozen pending the divorce settlement and criminal investigations. 3 days later, Livia was arrested at the airport while trying to flee to Switzerland. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Poisoning, tax fraud, financial crimes. She had nowhere left to run. Then, my biological parents came to my penthouse. They begged. They cried. They knelt outside my door. They wanted me to drop the charges against Livia. They wanted financial assistance for the collapsing Ashwood Group. I didn't even open the door. My security team removed them from the property. They had made their decision 10 years earlier. Now they could live with the consequences. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. I received the full $2 billion settlement, and I gained control of 3 major Thorn Group subsidiaries that I had personally built. Adrian waited outside the courthouse. He looked decades older. His empire was gone. His family was disgraced. His life was almost empty. He held something in his trembling hand. The wishing bottle. The same bottle Livia had given him when she returned. I threw it in the trash, he said quietly. Then I went back and dug it out. I smashed it into dust. His voice broke. I ruined my life for sand, Amy. I lost the diamond because I was staring at a grain of sand. I looked at him. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him. I simply felt nothing. Peaceful indifference. Goodbye, Adrian. Then I walked down the courthouse steps, into the sunlight, and never looked back. 6 months later, the financial world was stunned. A new luxury conglomerate and technology logistics empire had exploded onto the market. AA Enterprises. My company. My empire. I had acquired failing legacy businesses, including the restructured Ashwood Group. My assistant entered my office. Miss Ashwood, the court proceedings for Livia are complete. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The Ashwood family home is going to public auction. I looked out at the skyline. Buy it. My assistant paused. The house? Yes. Demolish it. Turn the land into a public park. Understood, ma'am. Then she gave me another report. And Mr. Thorne? I glanced at the file. Adrian had disappeared into the countryside. Ironically, the very same rural village where I had been raised after my biological parents abandoned me. He now lived quietly, running a small mechanic shop. A broken man, living with the consequences of everything he had thrown away. Leave him be, I said. I closed the tablet. He's exactly where he belongs. 1 year later, the annual Global Business Leadership Summit filled the capital. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. And I walked down the red carpet in a midnight blue velvet gown. 10 years earlier, I had been a stand-in, a shadow, a forgotten daughter, a woman forced to take another woman's place. I had swallowed humiliation, lost 2 children, built an empire that wasn't even supposed to be mine, and survived a war that had never been mine to fight. But today, I was standing alone, not behind Livia, not beside Adrian, not beneath the Ashwood name, not beneath the Thorne name. I was the master of my own destiny. A reporter pushed through the crowd. Miss Ashwood, looking back at your incredible journey, from forgotten daughter to one of the most powerful women in the business world, do you have any regrets about leaving the Thorne empire behind? I stopped, turned toward the cameras, and smiled. I didn't leave an empire behind.
My voice was calm, clear, certain.
I built my own. The reporters fell silent. Then I added, and a true queen never stands in anyone else's shadow. I turned, walked through the glass doors, and disappeared into the bright lights of the venue, leaving the past behind forever. Because sometimes, the person everyone treats as a replacement is actually the person who is destined to build something greater. Sometimes the family that abandons you is doing you a favor, and sometimes the person who thinks they can replace you eventually realizes they were never capable of becoming you. I spent 10 years living in someone else's shadow, but when the light finally came, I didn't fight to reclaim my old life. I built a new one, and this time, it belonged entirely to me.